All right. Well, first of all, my name is Rachel. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself in a few minutes, but I wanted to start off and thank the Help Network for having me. I'm really excited for the work that Julia and Chip and Julian and the team over there is doing, especially now when there's just so much going on in the entertainment industry. But a couple of housekeeping things very quickly. So the Help Network is recording this, and I believe they're also streaming it live on Facebook right now. So there's going to be a couple of places for you to catch the information later in case you don't want to take copious notes while you're listening. And secondly, I'm going to have a Q&A period at the end. But if questions come up, go ahead and hit that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to address them at the end, but you can type them in there anytime as questions come up for you. So I have two goals for our time together. And the first one is that you would leave with a belief that you can launch a freelance business if you really want to, and that you can be successful at it. And the second goal I have is that you would leave with a clear action plan that you can dive into tomorrow. First, we just have to acknowledge what's going on with COVID and really the impact it has had on, theaters closing and productions shutting down. And I just want to acknowledge what's going on, especially for if you are a Help Network, participant or a client or employee. And just want to say, I hope that today gives you a little bit of hope that as you figure out how to reinvent yourself, as you figure out how to pivot your business, that you would have a little bit more clarity after today. I want to kick our time off together by talking about the work of Bronnie Ware. She was a palliative care nurse, and she took care of people in their dying days. And she recorded, with their permission, what their top regrets of their life were. She collected them in this book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret people had was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Now, I think in previous generations that could have applied to maybe who you loved or where you lived. But for a lot of us today, I think this applies to our careers. And the studies show this. In 2019, Gallup did a poll surveying the US workforce, and only 54% of them said they were completely satisfied with their jobs. And you might be thinking, Rachel, 54% is good. Like, that's actually more than I thought. But I see that stat and I see 46% who weren't completely satisfied. And when I do the math that we work, let's say in a regular corporate job, 40 to 50 hours a week for 50 weeks a year for maybe 40 years of our life, right? Age 25 to 65, that's 80,000 hours. We spend 1/3 of our lives working and really half of our waking hours. And what I keep on hearing from people is that they feel stuck, they feel unfulfilled, they feel frustrated, they feel stressed, maybe fearful, sometimes even resentful. And again, 80,000 hours, half of our waking hours. I mean, if we are spending that much time feeling those things, are we being our best selves? How do you think that affects our relationships, the way we parent, the way we even just show up at work? And I just don't think the status quo is working, because here's what I see, that we feel unfulfilled in this thing that makes us feel stuck. We have fears around finances. We're not really sure what else to do. So we keep doing what we're doing, and then we continue feeling stuck. And it's kind of like this crazy self-fulfilling cycle. And I know, because that was my story. I'm really sorry. That's my senior high school picture. Every time I put up this slide, I'm like, why did I include that? Anyway, after college, I had a really lucky corporate career in some really big companies. There's an agency not represented there, but my entire career was in marketing. And I worked with incredible global brands. I traveled the world and really had some amazing mentors and managers that gave me the best education possible in marketing. And I loved it because it satisfied my right and left brain. It's how I'm wired. Art meets science. And for those first 10 years of my 12-year corporate career, honestly, it was really, really, really fun. And then about year 10, I had my first hinge moment. This is what John Acuff in his book Quitters calls like a pivotal moment in your life. And it was when I joined that 46% of people who weren't completely satisfied. And there were lots of reasons for that, but I was spending half of my waking hours feeling frustrated with the politics at my work, disillusioned by corporate America, feeling stuck where I was, like I didn't know what else I could do. I wasn't fulfilled by what I was doing. I was marketing products I wouldn't have sold to my friends. And then I really was feeling a lot of stress, which was affecting all areas of our lives, right? Around that same time, I started asking myself a really powerful question, one that you've probably heard before. What would I do without fear of failure? Well, I already told you I loved marketing. It's how I'm wired. But I really wanted to do it for projects that I cared about and for companies who I thought were doing good in the world. Then came my second hinge moment. And this is going to sound funny, but it was actually a knee surgery. I'm a soccer player and I had had several knee surgeries. And in this particular one, I actually couldn't drive for a month because it was my right knee. And luckily my manager at the time said, you can work from home for a month. And I had never done that. I had never worked from home really. And what I discovered was that I loved it. I was super disciplined. I did not go and watch Netflix on the side. I was really efficient, right? I didn't have to be in meetings to talk about other meetings. Has anyone ever experienced that? I felt like I was really productive and I was happy. Well, then came my moment of truth. The division of a big company that I was working for decided to shut its doors. And I had a couple of options. I could go and apply at that same company, like in a different division or at headquarters. Or I thought, what about this thing I've been talking about? This thing about, working on projects I care about for companies doing good in the world. And so I decided to launch my own marketing consulting business. And I gave myself a 6-month runway. That was about how much savings I had. And I thought, if I don't make a single dime in those 6 months, then I'll just go back and get a corporate job. Well, that was in 2011. That's when I started Rachel K Group. I focus on nonprofits, small businesses, and startups doing good in the world who can't afford full-time marketing directors or chief marketing officers. I'm going into that level of detail because I'm going to refer back to it a little later. And I specialize in brand strategy and marketing communication strategy. Again, I'm going to refer back to this. And it has been an amazing 9.5-year journey. But I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that the entrepreneurship journey, sometimes in our minds, right, it's going to be rainbows and unicorns and, fairy dust. And the reality maybe looks like the bottom half of this graphic, where there's a lot of fits and starts. There's a lot of, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. But I can tell you one thing, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love this definition of happiness from Tal Ben-Shahar. He's a Harvard professor, and at one point he taught the most popular class on campus on happiness. He says, happiness is the place between meaning and pleasure. And when I think about our careers, I think about that as being the intersection of our purpose and pleasure, or at least it can be. And for me, with Rachel K Group, that is where I have found my freedom, my maximum flexibility, and my joy. For me, that looks like getting to travel to Japan for 2 weeks to snowboard, or working with clients who are nonprofits and giving back to the community, or going to Europe for a month and exploring the Louvre. That's Lady Liberty behind me. Well, last year I started dreaming about what's next and started thinking about other ways that I'm wired and about this journey of entrepreneurship I had been on. And it's when I realized I had this really deep belief. It's that your career should work for you, not the other way around, right? And so that's why we're here today. I'm really passionate about helping other people launch their own freelance solopreneur businesses, because I really believe that you can be successful at it if you want to be, with the right tools. But when I started, there was no roadmap. I was making tons of mistakes all over the place. And when I looked even last year and was like looking for programs of how are people starting their businesses, there wasn't anything that had a clearly laid out plan from A to Z that helped people start. And that's why we're here today. So I'm going to jump in with this first thing. I want you to stop the one thing preventing you from having the career you want and start harnessing the power of this tool that all successful business owners use. I'm talking about belief, right? What do you believe about the universe or God? What do you believe about the world around you? And what do you believe about yourself? Because beliefs have power. They start at a very early age. They're formed at a subconscious level. They control our behavior whether or not we're aware of them, right? Because most of them are subconscious. But here's the good news. We can determine our beliefs. We can unearth those subconscious ones, right? By paying attention to our emotions, paying attention to our actions, and we can shape them into something that serves us much more strongly. And that's important because our beliefs dictate our success. I wanted to share a few of my beliefs so you could get an idea of what I'm talking about. Number one, I think whatever challenge we find ourselves in is always temporary, right? COVID will end. If you've been laid off, you will find a job eventually. If you've had relationship drama, it's going to come to a conclusion at some point. It's always temporary. And this belief allows me to stay in action and stay motivated to show up as my best self and really still work towards the goals and dreams that I have for my life. Number two, there are plenty of companies who need freelance help right now. And of course, again, you know, the entertainment industry, theater production, all the behind the scenes and in front of the camera, behind the camera, on stage, behind the stages, all of those things are really heavily affected right now. But there are also industries thriving. So how can you take the skills you already have and pivot to serve an industry like at-home fitness or delivery service or insurance, healthcare, right? There's all these industries that are actually really doing well right now, and they might need your help. Number three, there's enough work for all of us to go around. This was a belief I held from the beginning of starting Rachel K Group, and I had no idea how powerful it was. But what it did is it kept me from comparing myself to other people and really saw anyone else's success as inspiration that I could do the same thing. We each have something to contribute to the world. Some people call it your spiritual vision or unique genius, but we each have this really unique combination of passions, desires, unique inherent skill sets and gifts and strengths, and they're meant to impact the world in a specific way that only you can. I love this quote from Chariots of Fire, which is totally aging me, but I believe God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. Like, how awesome is that, right? Like, we can feel that in our work lives. And finally, we can enjoy our work and have fun while doing it. It's not an exaggeration for me to say I wake up and I'm excited to work with my clients every day because I really feel like I'm impacting them. I'm helping amplify their brand and spread their messages in a way that's, again, helping the good that they're doing in the world have even greater impact. Okay, next. There are 4 critical building blocks, even more important than a detailed business plan, to successfully launch your own business. Here's what I'm talking about. Your spiritual vision. I just talked about that, right? Your life vision. What kind of lifestyle do you want to lead? So often we stumble upon a job and then we retrofit our lives around that instead of asking ourselves, what kind of life do I want, and fashioning a career out of around actually the life we want to lead. What are your values, right? What do you hold most important? Family, connection, whatever that might be. And then finally, our strengths. What are the things that we're already naturally good at? Because tons of research out there shows that by focusing on our strengths, that is actually more important than trying to fix our weaknesses. So in my coaching programs, we actually go over these in really deep detail. But for the sake of this webinar, I just want you to keep those 4 things in mind if you're planning to launch your own business. So we're going to get into more of the nitty gritty, but I'm going to give you a little disclaimer first that my business attorney asked me to include. This presentation does not constitute legal advice, tax consulting, other related professional services. Please consult your lawyer or tax accountant for your specific circumstances. So we're going to start with the basics. Number 1, determine your business name, right? Now, some of you are just going to use your legal name, which is great. But if you want to do business like me, like Rachel K Group, that's not my legal name. I had to go file a DBA, doing business as, or FBN, fictitious business name, depending on where you live. Number 2, decide what address to use. Again, I have a home office. I don't necessarily, not everyone is going to want to use their home address. So you can go down to your local postal annex and sign up for a mailbox, whatever you feel most comfortable with, but you're going to have to use an address on every single one of your business paperwork documents. Number 3, determine your entity structure. This is the question I get asked the most about. And the answer about what you should you be a sole proprietor or an S Corp or an LLC? It really depends on where you live, what your specific circumstances are, both from a tax perspective and a legal perspective. What kind of business, service, or product are you providing? And so I really want you to consult with a tax attorney and your business attorney together to determine the right structure for you. Next, you need to register for a business license, and a lot of people don't realize this. But usually it's just something you can Google for your area. It's something local. So for me, I live in San Diego, and it's less than $40 a year, and I can do it online. It's really simple, but I've actually had clients that have required me to have a business license in order to work with them. Next, you want to obtain general liability insurance. And even if you're working from home, your home insurance or your renter's insurance does not cover your business operations. And this is just an added layer of protection you want for your business. And generally, it's not too expensive. Talk to your insurance broker again, specifically about what service you're providing to make sure you're getting the correct amount of coverage and type of coverage. I think I pay about $60 a month. It's really not a huge expense, but really important. And I've also, same thing, had clients that have required me to have that, even though I'm just doing marketing consulting, to work with them. And then finally, register for an employee identification number. If you're here in the States, this is free. You can just go to the IRS website. And even if you're a sole proprietor, you can do this. And what this does is it protects you from using your social security number for your business operations. And again, it's free, and it's just something you can do online. So if you have any questions about these basics, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And again, I'm going to address them at the end. But we're going to move on. To confidently launch your solopreneur business and avoid the most common pitfalls, all the things that I did in the beginning, you need to understand 2 foundational pillars. The first one is accounting. And some of you might start to sweat right now and feel really uncomfortable, because I encounter so many people who have a lot of either just shame around money because we don't know how to talk about money well in our society, or they just feel like they're not good with numbers and they just don't want to deal with it. But you can set yourself up with a few things that are going to make your life a lot easier. Number 1, open a new checking account, or use a credit card that you already have only for business. Really, I want you to do both. The reason is you want to separate your business and your personal expenses, even if you're a sole proprietor. This is going to make your life so much easier come tax time. Number 2, start tracking your expenses, ideally online. So whether you buy a paperclip or some super expensive software program or like a new computer, I want you to start tracking that. Now, a lot of people might be familiar with like Mint from Intuit, which can import your transactions from your bank account or credit card for your personal life, right? And you create budgets and goals. Well, I want you to do the same thing for your business. And I want you to import any transactions from this new business only checking account and your business only credit account. Credit card. Number 3, find software that you like to create and send and track invoices. I still see a lot of people using Word or Excel or Google Docs, and they're manually emailing them. And the problem with that is that then you have to keep on going back and say like, oh my gosh, when did I email that person? And if something's past due, you're not going to get an automated notification about it, and neither is your client. There are a lot of free programs out there that actually can help you do this. And you can, customize your invoice for your company. And that way you're getting reminders and you know exactly how much is owed to you at any given time. Really, what I want you to do is find something that does it all, right? And that's cloud-based. So something that imports your transactions from your, bank account and credit card, lets you categorize them, something that helps you send and track invoices, something that helps you spit out reports like profit and loss statements. Ideally, your tax preparer would be able to collaborate with you on it, whether get access or you're just sending them reports. But I want you to find something that works for you because, for example, I was sent QuickBooks when I was first starting out as a gift, which was super nice, but it was just too complicated for me and it was more than what I needed. So I chose to find a different software that I liked the interface, it works for me. Okay, so if you have any questions about accounting, again, put them in the Q&A and we're going to address them in a little bit. Okay, the next slide, your offer. This is that second foundational pillar I was talking about. So the first one was accounting, the second one is your offer. So number 1, you have to get really clear on who you serve. That's why I was so specific, right? It's nonprofits, small businesses, startups who can't afford a full-time CMO, who are doing good in the world. It's a very specific niche. It's a specific size company. Usually there's maybe 1 to maybe 20 employees, sometimes 30, but I'm not trying to serve everyone. We can't be all things to all people. It's really important for you to niche down and figure out who you're serving. Then you have to figure out exactly what your area of expertise will be. When I first started, I'd had the great fortune of having experience in a lot of different areas of marketing. So I did channel marketing and partner marketing. I ran global advertising and brand for Kyocera Wireless for a number of years. I oversaw a web team. I oversaw social media and PR. So I had a lot of experience, which was great. And so when I first started, I offered it all, which then I realized I actually don't want to do a lot of those things. And so today I outsource PR. I never was a graphic designer, so I've always outsourced graphic design, but web programming and all of those other functions that aren't super life-giving to me, I outsource, and I focus just on brand strategy and marketing communication strategy, the things that I love the most and I feel like I am actually the most well-suited for and most well-qualified to serve my clients in. Number 3, research your competition. Find out who else is doing the thing that you want to do. Figure out how they're marketing themselves, who they're serving, and what they're charging. And the reason is because this is going to help you not only maybe determine your pricing, but also figure out how you can be unique and differentiate yourself from whatever else is out in the market. Number 4, determine your pricing packages. Now, while every single client I work with has a different custom pricing, I also have a pricing calculator that I've created for myself that I use. And it's really helpful to have some baseline pricing, for example, for my brand workshop that I do with clients if they're wanting to relaunch a brand or build a brand from scratch. Here are some common pricing mistakes I see. When we're first starting out, we underestimate the time it's going to take to complete something. And so just be aware that when you're starting out your new business, you're probably creating new processes, new templates. Maybe you're creating a new proprietary methodology for whatever you're doing. So give yourself a little extra time when you're thinking about your pricing and how long this project is going to take. Number two, I see a lot of freelancers and solopreneurs succumb to scope creep. Now, what I mean by this is you have agreed to a certain amount of deliverables for your client. For example, let's say you're saying, I'm going to write you 4 blog posts a month if you're a copywriter. And then that client says, oh, can you just add in like a social media post too? Well, no, that's outside of your scope. And so you want to be really clear up front about what your contract includes, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. And then really also feel free and feel empowered to let your clients know when they're out of this scope and that you're going to have to charge more for any additional services they're asking for. Number 3, trade dollars for hours. Man, I wish I knew this when I was starting out, because I just had kind of an hourly rate and I charged people by hour. But really what we want to do is charge based on value, right? Value-based pricing. What's the value of the service or product you're providing for your client? Because really it shouldn't be about the amount of time we spend. You can use the amount of time you think it's going to take to maybe come up with a flat fee or a project fee. But I don't want you to be tied to just again, trading dollars for hours, because you're never going to get out of that cycle if you start. I shouldn't say that, because I started that way and now I don't do that anymore. But I wish I had learned that from the very beginning. And number 4, you're either going to undercharge or overcharge based on the scope and your experience. And I see this especially in women. We undercharge all the time. So again, this is why it's important to research your competition, figure out what, similar people in your industry, especially men, are charging who have been doing it for a while. And make sure also, if you are just starting and you're doing something you've never done, like, you probably do want to charge a little less as you build experience, and then you keep raising your rates. Okay, and finally, related to your offer, create a proposal template. This is going to save you hours if you have a template where you can just go in and again customize for each client. Here's what your proposal should include: a project overview. What's going on in the business of your client that they are calling you and asking for your help? What are the objectives and specific goals of the services you're going to provide? And then what are those services and deliverables? Be really clear about that. What's the timeline you're going to provide all of this in? Of course, what's the cost? And then don't forget a payment schedule, right? Are you going to charge them a monthly retainer? Is it going to be in installments? Are you going to submit an invoice to them and then they have net 30 days to pay it? You just want to have those payment terms really clear up front so that when it comes time for billing, there's no confusion. I do recommend you have a short contract, and I know I have one created by my business attorney that's very specific to my business. And of course, there's some templates online, but really what you want to do is just have some kind of indemnification clauses so that there's an understanding of who owns the work product once it's complete, and also an out clause, which I always consider for myself in case there's a client that I don't want to work with. I've never actually taken that out clause, but it's just there so that each of you are clear on, let's say you have 30 days to cancel this project. And finally, a dotted line, right? So if you have any questions about this, again, put them in the Q&A, but we're going to move on. Really, what I want you to do is start working. Eliminate your limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome thoughts. I recently heard that even Oprah had imposter syndrome, which made me feel a lot better, because not just once, not in the beginning, but throughout your entrepreneurial journey, you're going to just feel like, oh my gosh, who am I to do this? Why am I doing this? But again, you've been given this unique set of gifts and talents. You probably have a gut intuition that this is the thing you're supposed to do. And I want you to follow your gut and just go do that thing. Number 2, form a personal board of directors. Corporations have boards of directors, right, to keep their leadership and even their employees accountable. Well, as solopreneurs, it can be really hard because we can feel like an island of one. But it's important to have people around you that are going to help encourage you, that you can turn to for advice when needed, and that are going to hold you accountable. So mine include trusted friends who are also business owners, my business attorney, my investment advisor, my estate planner, my tax consultant, other people that are doing what I'm doing, exactly marketing consultants, and a business coach. I think that's really important. Activate your network, right? So whether it's former colleagues or the parents of your kids' friends from their school, or anyone you've ever volunteered with, right? Start telling people about this new thing you're doing, because you never know what connection they might have or even what need they might have for the service that you're going to be providing. Put together a simple portfolio now and then add to it as you go. So some of you might have a website or launch with that, and that's great. I both had a really simple website, and then I'm going to show you an example of my really terrible overview. This was the first one I ever did, but really it was a glorified resume. This is my old brand. But on the first page was all of the things I did, right? I told you I offered like 25 million services. The second page, glorified resume. It was really about my corporate career. And the third page was a mix of some corporate career work product and also some of my early freelance client work. And so that was really it. But what it did was it was something that I could send out to prospects if they were interested in working with me. And then I want you to keep going. Collect testimonials as you go. And in fact, even before you start, you could go back to former managers or organizations you volunteered with to give you a statement about your work product and the quality of the work or service that you're providing. And this is great, not just for using it as a marketing tool, but also it's going to give you a lot of confidence to read what other people say about you. Keep evolving. So I have a lot of processes that I started out with 9 years ago that have just continually, I've just tweaked and evolved with really, honestly, probably every client. And they just keep on getting better and better. And so just, you don't have to, be locked into the process or the templates that you create in the beginning. Just be open to keep on tweaking them as you learn, because we're going to continually learn with every new client and new project. Keep learning. So this is one thing that I loved about my corporate career was I was really fortunate to go to a bunch of different trainings and leadership courses and management trainings. But just because I'm a solopreneur doesn't mean that has to stop. There are so many free resources out there, right? Whether you want to just skills build, or whether you want to work on personal development or whatever it is. So I just think it's really important as solopreneurs that we're constantly also learning ourselves, because again, that's going to help us evolve our work product. And then constantly reinforce your positive beliefs. I started with beliefs and I'm ending with beliefs because I can't just underestimate the power of them. I mean, some people think that mindset is really related to 80% of our success as entrepreneurs. And I think they're right. I spent a ton of time in this in my programs with people, but it's really important that you have a solid mindset, that you have a solid belief in yourself, again, that you believe that the universe is a friendly place and that things are working out for you. If you really believe that, I think there's no chance that you're not going to be successful. So I'm going to take a little pause and do a little Q&A. And I will look here. Let me stop my share. Oops, and I'm so sorry. Okay, I don't see any Q&A right now. Just want to make sure. From Toy, establishing a business relationship checking account with a bank has proven to be so important during this pandemic and the PPP loan process. Great point. A lot of the PPP loans, most of them from my understanding, and I know I received one myself, have been from the banks you already have relationships with. I actually recently just did a Facebook Live with my business coach who happens to own a CPA firm, and her advice was actually to have a separate bank for your business and personal expenses. And her reasoning was that then it's harder to kind of transfer between them. But I have mine in the same, but that's just a little piece of advice. And then, yeah, doesn't look like we have questions. So we'll keep going. So some of you are gonna just run with all this information and go open your new checking account and you know, start thinking about your offer and pricing tomorrow. And I love that. But in my experience, a lot of people are also like, man, I wish I had a little bit more guidance. And so that's why I created the Freelance Freedom Program. I shouldn't make product names that I can't pronounce myself, that are tongue twisters. So I apologize. But really, I built it because I wanted to help full-time professionals who feel stuck or unfulfilled confidently launch a freelance business in just 3 months so that you can experience more freedom and flexibility and joy in all areas of your life. I really think if it's possible for me, then it's possible for you. And it's really structured for every client. So we have a program we go through, but it's flexible depending on your just situation in life, whether you're still working full-time, whether you've recently launched a new business, and it's customized according to your specific business. So we start with a foundation, some of those things I mentioned about vision casting, your spiritual vision, your life vision. We do a ton of mindset training, and then we talk about assessments like what are your values? What are the skills you already have, and what are your strengths? And you actually then get a free Strength Finder coaching session from my friend who's a Gallup certified strength coach. That's actually one of my favorite things. We go into productivity and planning. So some productivity hacks, because when you have a new business, there's just some boundaries that you need to set for yourself and your business. And also, even though we're all a little bit more used to working from home remotely now, it's still something, there's still a lot we can do to make sure we're maximizing our day, and then also getting to still spend time with our families. We do some goal setting around your business, and we actually create a business plan together, which is great if you ever want to go out and find investors, but also internally as a guidepost for your own self of the different like revenue goals you wanted to reach, and even organizational structure you wanted. We do talk about the business backend, so you get to talk to my business attorney. We have a consultation session with him to talk about what is the right structure for you from an entity perspective. We help set up your accounting together. We talk about all the startup and ongoing expenses, right, that you might not know about if you were working for someone else and now have your own gig. And then finally, we want to maximize your write-offs, because there's a lot of things people don't realize they can write off when you're a solopreneur. And then finally, we really get clear on your pricing and your proposals. What is your offer? What are your rates? And we create a proposal template for you together. If any of that is interesting, I would love to chat with you. If you go to rachelkgroup.com/career, there's a space at the bottom where you can schedule a free 30-minute career strategy session. It's completely free. And here's what we go over. We go over where you are today in your career, where you want to go, any strategies that are going to help you get there, and then resources. Even if it's not me, a lot of times I'm just able to point you to something, another program, or someone in my network that could help you maybe get to the next step of where you want to go. And this is for you if you want to start a solopreneur business, or maybe you have just an idea for a side hustle, or you've just recently started one of the above, and you realize you need a little bit more help than you thought. But I want to again say thank you so much to the Help Network. Thank you for you all for being here. I would love to connect with you. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Rachel K. Cross. Again, you can visit my website or email me directly. And I'll leave you this one final thought. Don't accept the lie that work has to be miserable and dreams are for other people. They are for everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Oh, I have one Q&A that just came in, so I guess I will answer that. To Steve, can you recommend any financial software programs? So the one that I use is called Wave Apps, WAVEAPPS. And I love it because it does all of those things, and it's actually free for sole proprietors. So really inexpensive way, and it's easy to use. And I've been using them for the entire 9 years, and they've grown a ton as a company. And now I use them for different things like payroll and filing payroll taxes and some of those more complicated functions that I don't want to do myself. Let me just check and make sure there's nothing else. Perfect. Well, thank you again for being here. Thanks to Help. And I hope you have a great week.